There's a version of this story built around an unnamed tablet, found on the back of what looks like an ordinary Sumerian grain receipt, describing a message sent to humanity from somewhere in the sky, carrying knowledge about human nature and origin, deliberately blocked by the moon, placed in position on purpose, with the block described as temporary, opening again on a schedule supposedly encoded in a column of numbers. I want to start by giving this one some real credit, because it's more self-aware than most sources we've covered in this series. It explicitly warns its own audience. The most seductive stories are the ones built to make you feel chosen, and it repeatedly tries to hold its own claims at arm's length. That instinct is worth taking seriously. I'm going to finish the job it starts but doesn't quite complete. There's no locatable tablet, museum, catalog number, or name translator behind this claim. The same unverifiable by design pattern we've flagged throughout this series, here taken about as far as it can go, since even the museum itself is never named. Now, the moon anomalies this script leans on. These deserve real, specific answers, because several of them aren't actually open questions in modern astronomy. The moon's unusually large size relative to Earth, compared to other moons in the solar system, is real and worth being impressed by, but it's not unexplained. The leading, well-supported scientific explanation is the giant impact hypothesis. A Mars-sized body, often called Theia, is thought to have collided with early Earth roughly 4.5 billion years ago, with debris from that collision coalescing into the moon. This isn't speculation without evidence. Lunar rock samples brought back by the Apollo missions show striking compositional similarities to Earth's mantle, exactly what this hypothesis predicts, and it remains the dominant model among planetary scientists today. The moon always showing the same face to Earth, tidal locking, is also real, but it's neither mysterious nor unique to our moon. It's an extremely common outcome of gravitational interaction between two bodies over enough time, seen throughout the solar system, including many of Jupiter's and Saturn's larger moons. It's basic, well-understood orbital mechanics, not an open puzzle. The claim that the moon's orbit is strangely circular actually overstates the case in the other direction. The moon's real orbit has a measurable elliptical shape, well characterized by astronomers, responsible for the real difference between what's popularly called a supermoon and a more distant, smaller-appearing full moon. It's not unusually circular at all. The eclipse coincidence, the moon appearing almost exactly the same angular size as the sun, is genuinely real and genuinely a remarkable coincidence of timing. The moon is slowly receding from Earth by a few centimeters a year, meaning this precise visual match is something that happens to be true during the relatively narrow window of Earth's multi-billion-year history that includes us. That's a wonderful, real fact about our specific moment in time. It doesn't require anything to have been deliberately placed. It's worth mentioning directly that a real, artificial moon hypothesis does exist in the historical record. A 1970 paper by two Soviet researchers, Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Sherbakov, speculatively proposed the moon might be an artificial, hollowed-out structure. It's a real, citable piece of scientific history, and it's also a fringe hypothesis that was never accepted by mainstream planetary science, especially since the extensive data gathered from Apollo-era seismometers and lunar samples has continued to support a natural formation rather than an artificial one. Now, the numbers, and this is where I want to push back most directly on the script's own reasoning, since it's the one place where its self-awareness stops short. It argues that because the numbers were sitting there unexplained, before anyone tried the astronomical reading, the astronomical interpretation must be meaningful rather than imposed. This doesn't actually follow, and it's worth naming the real cognitive pattern at work here. Apophenia, the well-documented human tendency to find convincing patterns in random or ambiguous data, especially numerical data, when there's enough freedom to choose which reference points, which angles, and which stars to match them against. Long sequences of numbers can very often be made to fit some real-world pattern after the fact. That's a known methodological trap in reading ancient numerical texts, not evidence that a fit is meaningful. Since no actual tablet or published translation exists to check here, there's no way to independently verify the claim that the numbers came first at all. That's simply an assertion about a document nobody else can examine. There are 2 points worth restating briefly from elsewhere in this series, since they apply here too. The claim that humanity was meant to receive withheld knowledge about its own nature and origin, blocked by an external obstacle, stands in contrast to the Islamic teaching that human nature and purpose were revealed directly and openly by Allah, not transmitted from a distant point in the sky and intercepted en route. And the claim that a window for this message's arrival can be calculated from ancient numerical patterns touches the same gaping concern raised elsewhere in this series. Knowledge of specific future events is something Islamic teaching holds belongs to Allah alone, regardless of how the calculation is framed. So where does that leave us? With real, genuinely fascinating lunar science, the giant impact hypothesis, tidal locking, the moon's real elliptical orbit, and the real, striking eclipse coincidence of our current era, each of which already has a well-supported explanation, and a real, if fringe, piece of scientific history in the 1970 Soviet artificial moon paper. Wrapped around all of that is an entirely unverifiable modern tablet, and a numerical argument that, on its own terms, doesn't hold up to the well-known problem of finding patterns in numbers we can't independently. If this kind of thread interests you, the real story of how the moon formed, and the real Apollo-era evidence supporting it, is genuinely one of the more satisfying stories in modern planetary science, worth reading directly, without needing an obstacle or a hidden message layered on top of it. The moon really is strange in some ways worth being curious about. Its size, its recession, the specific window of time we happen to live in that makes eclipses possible at all. All of that is real and doesn't need anything blocked or withheld to be worth your attention. It was never in the way of anything. It's just remarkably, genuinely interesting on its own.